All right, welcome to Bleav in Clemson Football. I am Will Vandervort. That is Alex Dodd. We appreciate you guys joining us tonight as we get you set for another exciting show of Bleav in Clemson Football. I know you guys are excited as we are. And Alex, before I go any further, I want to say this off the top. Congratulations to my nephew Alex and his wife Caitlin. They had a little girl this afternoon, around 4:00 this afternoon, and so his first child. And so excited for Alex, and I know it's another Alex. So people are probably getting confused.
It's not me. I'm not Will's nephew. Believe it or not, we are not related. I know it's hard to believe, but we're not.
This is my sister's boy, and he lives out in Arkansas, and they just had their first child today. So congratulations to Alex and Caitlin. Wish you all the best. Glad mama's doing good, and that's good. Baby's doing well as well. So we're happy about that over here in the Vandervort household. As another Vandervort / Jensen, because his name is Jensen, is into the world. So anyway, congratulations, Alex. Proud of you, buddy, obviously, for everything you're doing. And now glad to see your daddy.
Yeah, that's what the world needs, more Vandervorts. Hopefully none of the negative Vandervort characteristics passed on to this nephew, and that he ends up being the best one to come from the family tree.
Well, Alex already is the best one. He's definitely the smartest one. So he knows computers and all that stuff way better than
Will types with two fingers. Yeah.
Yes. He types normal and all. He's a smart young man, and he's done some good things already, and he'll continue to. So anyway, I wanted to get that up there. So I know my nephew's probably not watching this right now, but maybe later on he will. I know my sister will watch it later. So she always watches. So Erica, congratulations on being a grandma. So she's a grandma now. It's crazy.
How much did you love saying that, telling your sister that?
I did. She's excited about it. She says, "Can you believe I'm a grandma now?" And I was like, "No, not really." But so excited for her. She's excited to be a grandma. She's gonna spoil that baby. She spoiled Alex. I know she's gonna spoil this baby even more. So she's excited, as she should be. Anyway. Glad all the rest of you are here. We're going to talk Clemson football, obviously. We got a lot of stuff we're going to talk about today. This show is going to kind of be dedicated to kind of what's already being said about Clemson around the country this way too early stuff. And we're going to get into a little bit of that. We're going to talk about Clemson's potential, where me and Alex possibly see this team going. Obviously, we'll mention a little bit about the team. We got to talk a little bit about spring practice. As well as, we'll go through, what we think is going to happen and all. We're going to talk a little bit of basketball and baseball as well. So anyway, appreciate you guys being here. Alex, just your thoughts so far. Early, here we are in February, and Clemson basketball is doing what it's doing. Baseball season's about to start. Softball started last week. What's your thoughts?
Man, this is an exciting time of the year. Like, I always love this little kind of middle February where you got opening day of college baseball. Obviously, Will and I are both, huge college baseball fans, and I'm going to be down in old Tejas this weekend to watch the Tigers play in the Shriners Children's College Showdown. So I'm looking forward to that. But the basketball team, man, they're on a heater right now. It's hard for me I know I heard you talking today on William Qualkenbush's show on WCCP about how it's kind of hard to think of a time when a Clemson basketball team has been playing better ball than what this Clemson team did in 48 hours against Duke and North Carolina. And I know anybody that grew up as a Clemson fan and grew up watching Clemson basketball, you don't care how good that North Carolina team that came into Little John was the other night. Still felt sweet watching the Tigers beat them by 20 and run them out of the building.
Man, there's nothing finer than beating Carolina. I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't care what sport it is. I love it when Clemson beats North Carolina the way they do. And so we're going to talk about that game, talk a little bit about the Duke game as well. A lot of good stuff. Please leave your comments and questions in there, and we'll be happy to answer as many as we can throughout the show, and just kind of get to you guys whatever information that I have or Alex has on any of the sports. Like I said, Alex is going to go watch the baseball team this week in Arlington, and so he'll be there. That'll be pretty exciting. By the way, the Clemson Insider is there. Robert and JP are there right now. They're going to cover the games for you. As Clemson Insider, as you guys know, covers baseball like nobody else does. And we start off the season. Robert was excited right when he heard they were going to be playing in Arlington. He's like, yep, road trip going there. I wish I could go. I normally would have been, but had some other things that I gotta do, unfortunately.
I'm upset that you're not going, Will. It's bull. Honestly, it's bull. You should be making it a priority. Work doesn't matter. Paying the bills doesn't matter. Those dogs, they'll be fine.
Yeah, there's other priorities, that I have to take care of. But it is what it is. I'll definitely be at opening day next week at home, and then of course be with the Tigers for much of the season. For baseball, always excited, like you said, Alex, for baseball season. But I'm also excited for this show. And let's go ahead and talk about our sponsors. And first of all, we'll start off with the Clemson Insider. It is your if Clemson Insider is your place for all Clemson athletics, whether it be recruiting, whether it be anything as far as Clemson goes. Obviously you can read my stuff over there. You can read Jason Priester's recruiting stuff. Jason's got a ton of recruiting news going on right now. Just because it's not football season doesn't mean there isn't football news. There's always football news, whether it be from me or JP. So go over to the Clemson Insider, check it out, and do that. We also got plenty of Clemson basketball as we following the Tigers right now as Alex says, they're on this heater as they continue to maybe do some unprecedented stuff. We'll get into that here in just a little bit. And then you talk about Clemson baseball and softball have already started. You probably, if you've been to our website, you've seen our coverage already. And so we'll have a ton of stuff from that as well going out through the week. And of course, Clemson football, you can always get it there in Clemson recruiting. So go over to the ClemsonInsider.com. We appreciate Robert always allowing us to use the platform here on YouTube and also on Facebook and everywhere that you guys are watching us. So you can watch our live videos as we are making this podcast each and every week at Bleav in Clemson Football. Also want to go ahead and also go our sponsor with Birdie Burst. Today's show is presented by Birdie Burst Golf. Birdie Burst's mission is to revolutionize golf by cruising through the country club gates with style and bringing the game we love back to the people, particularly the next generation, with the innovative approach to smoothing out the learning curve and their student swings too. Birdie Burst helps teach the game to golfers of all ages and skill levels with tailor-made instruction on an online platform. Birdie Burst golf coach Stephen Bradley is an award-winning communications professional. He is Safe Sport trained and is a master's student at Kaiser University College of Golf, and he's working on his own game as well. So go over to at Birdie Burst on Instagram and Facebook. You can reach out to Stephen there, or you can email him at birdieburstgolf@gmail.com. Again, that's Birdie, BIRDIE, burstgolf@gmail.com. Alex,
we're also 54 days from the Masters. So it's that time too where you're thinking about golf, and give Stephen a shout over there at birdieburstgolf@gmail.com. Good time to think about golf.
Absolutely. Go give Steve a shout out. He first of all, he's doing a good job. He's got a couple students that he's working with already and already making a difference in their game. So, go check him out. Go see what he's doing. Like I said, I've played golf many times with Steve, and he's one of the best golfers I've played with. So you're going to learn a lot if you go on over there. All right, let's do it real quick here. Clemson basketball. They're 20-5, 12-2 in the ACC, a half game back of first place. Last week, of course, on Saturday, in what I thought is the best basketball game I've ever seen at Little John Coliseum in person. And the reason I say that is because I've seen Clemson win big games before. But I've never seen Clemson win a big game against a Duke or North Carolina when Duke and North Carolina were playing at their best. And Duke last week in that game played well. They were 12 of 24 from three-point range. They shot almost 50% in the game overall. They were like 90% from the foul line with their free throws. They didn't turn the basketball over. They played a good, clean game. They played like a top 5 basketball team last week. And Clemson still beat them.
Well, and the craziest part about it is I don't feel like Clemson played the best game that it could play. I felt like they turned the ball over 10 times in the first half.
Yep.
They really struggled to get in a rhythm from 2, like the
13
whole
of
game.
13 of 22 from foul line.
Yep, and I felt like they kinda had they didn't play a bad game. They played obviously, you wouldn't win that game if you played a bad game. I feel like they kinda played a B game, and with their grit and their tenacity, though, they played an A game, and that's why they were able to get the win. I mean, that team, just watch them throughout the season. There hadn't been a single game this year where they've laid down or rolled over. I mean,
No.
they're relentless. They're always due for a run, even in a game like against Georgia Tech, where they couldn't throw in the ocean. They still found a way to send the game into 3 overtimes. Memphis, that they lost, they sent the game into overtime. South Carolina, when they lost, they were able to extend the game to overtime. This team's just got something different about it. And the biggest part, I think, of their success here down the stretch recently has been Victor Locken. And he has showed up in a huge way. He's really found his role in the offense. And when he's playing well, everybody around him plays well.
Yeah, Victor right now is playing as good. He said he's playing the best basketball of his career right now. And when you go back and look at, with the exception of the Georgia Tech game because he got in foul trouble, but if you look at the last few games before Duke and North Carolina, he was playing already. And now he's just taking it with those guys. And against Kentucky, he just took it to a different level. This is what he did against Kentucky, Duke, and North Carolina. 23 against Kentucky, 22 against Duke, and 22 against North Carolina. The 3 best teams on the schedule that he's played, he's balled. I mean, and he's dominated the rim. He is he's defensively, and Brad said it the other day, just his presence in the lane and his ability to defend the rim like he does. He had 5 block shots the other day against North Carolina. It makes a difference, and it really changes how teams attack Clemson and how Clemson can rebound better when he's in there. That showed against Georgia Tech when he got in foul trouble. They couldn't rebound the ball to save their life. He just makes them better in a lot of areas. And then when he played against Duke, Duke likes to guard the perimeter. And so Duke wasn't going to let Clemson shoot 3-pointers. That's not what they do. So you got to have a guy like Victor Locken inside. They thought they could match up well with him. They found out they were wrong.
Well, and he
dominated them.
And they had a projected top 10 NBA draft pick guarding the guy.
Yes.
And he still, was able to go toe to toe with him, and eventually it gets him fouled out of the game because that's just how tough Victor plays. It seems like he knows how to use his body in the post. His post moves are awesome to watch. It's like art. The way he's able to take a drop step down on the block, the way he's able to throw up a hook shot over somebody, the way he's able to create separation in the post. He doesn't commit charges. I mean, he just doesn't. He knows when to stop pushing and take his shot, and it's fun to watch.
Yeah, he is. Now the thing is, he's got to be smart, and because he sometimes gets, as Brad said, he'll get frustrated. Like if he turns the ball over or a call goes against him or something of that nature, he'll quickly do something stupid. Brad says, because he gets emotional, and which is reaching in or slapping or whatever. And that's the thing he's trying to get better at. They talked to him after the Georgia Tech game, says, composure, dude. You got to have composure because we need you in the game. I mean, if as important as Chase Hunter is and as important as Ian Shefflin is, I think Victor Locken is probably the single most important player to what this team is going to be capable of doing this year. Because if he plays like he's done against Duke and North Carolina and Kentucky, if he plays that way in the ACC tournament and the NCAA tournament, he's going to be a problem for everybody they play. And that's going to open up things. When you saw the other day him stepping out and knocking down 4 3-pointers, Alex, you don't got to be a genius to know how every team's going to defend him now. When he steps out, what is their big man going to do?
He's going to come out.
He's going to come out. What does that do to Chase Hunter?
It's exactly. It's the same thing that you saw with PJ Hall last year when PJ was really in his rhythm, hitting threes, and guys had to step up and guard him at the perimeter. It opened up everything for Clemson in the NCAA tournament. And Victor kind of brings that same that same kind of style in terms of how you have to defend him. Obviously, he's not PJ Hall, Not the same kind of player,
He's not
but
athletic on the offensive end as
he
PJ, but
doesn't
he's better on the defensive end than PJ.
right, and he doesn't shoot from distance as well as PJ, but you just have to be able to do it a little bit to open up things on the inside. It's kind of like in football. You might not have to run for 200 yards in a game to win, but you got to run for 100.
Right.
Sometimes you got to run for 75. You got to do just enough to open up everything else. And that's kind of the way it is for this Clemson offense. When you're able to get the bigs out shooting threes, and they can make a couple, and teams have to account for that, it's going to open up everything else on the offensive end.
And then it allows Chase Hunter to just exploit you off the
Yeah.
dribble and just attack the rim the way he does.
I mean, it opens up everything, and I think the best thing for Clemson right now is you have 7 guys who are playing really, really well, and you have a couple other guys who are coming in and giving you good minutes. I mean, Miles Foster gave you some good minutes against North Carolina, and kind of the bright spot for him so far this season. They've got a lot of depth, they've got a lot of talent. They're a hard matchup, and God bless anybody that has to prepare for that in one day at the NCAA tournament if you get to that point.
But let's don't forget about what Jaden Zachary has done in both those games. He had 12 points on 5 of 8 shooting against Duke on Saturday. That was huge because they needed those points. And then the other night he goes off for 16 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, and 4 steals. I mean, that is a heck of a stat line.
And in that Duke game, Knipple comes out there and is knocking down those threes early for Duke, and you make the switch to Zachary. What he's able to do on the defensive end has been a huge bonus for Clemson to have a shooting guard that can defend that well.
Yes.
Man, that is a huge plus.
And he plays the point more than Chase plays the point. That takes a lot of pressure off Chase and allows Chase to be able to find his shot. So it's not all on Chase to have to create his shot and dictate the offense and things of that nature. And so I think that's really helped Chase Hunter, and why Chase Hunter is such a big-time scorer this year. A lot of people ask me that. Why is Chase more productive this year than last year? Well, because he's a true number 2. And he's been having to play point the last couple of years. Now with Jaden over there, who's a true point guard, that takes a lot of pressure off Chase Hunter. And now you got 2 guys who can play the point, and that really puts stress on a defense and a team. And we both know if you have a good backcourt, you're going to go places in the NCAA tournament. Look at last year. Clemson did. They had a good backcourt last year, obviously, with Joe Girard and Chase. Now I think they're even better this year with Chase. And then Dylan Hunter has come along. You got Dell Jones has come along. Clemson's backcourt
Dell Jones is man. I love watching Dell Jones.
He's a firecracker, man.
Man, every time he's on the floor, something good happens. I mean, those are the guys you want as a 6th man. You want somebody that's going to come off the bench, and every time they do, something good happens. And that's what Dell Jones does for this team. So there's
he was
a lot to love about him.
Lost Georgia Tech. Him not playing.
Agreed.
He had a bum ankle. So it's but anyway. So that's basketball. Before we get to football, we're going to get here in just a minute. So if you got questions, please let us know what you want to ask. I know we got one question in already right now. We'll get to that here in just a second. If you got questions, go ahead and get those lined up for us while we're going to talk a little bit of baseball right now, because the Clemson Tigers open up the 2025 baseball season on Friday in Arlington, playing where the Rangers play at their home ball field there in Arlington, Texas, as part of what's it called? What's the official title of the tournament?
Shriners Children's College Showdown.
There you go. That's a mouthful right there.
It is a mouthful.
But Clemson is in it. They're playing Oklahoma State. I know Ole Miss is the last game.
And they're playing Arizona on Saturday.
Yep.
3 very good teams in the top 25 and a third that is going to be there at some point.
That's what I'm saying. 3 very good programs, 2 top 25 teams. You're going to know right away how good this Clemson team is going to be. Alex, they got some disappointing news yesterday as their freshman pitcher, a guy they thought could be their Sunday pitcher, injured himself, took himself out of practice, had to go get his arm looked at. He did make the trip.
Yep.
He is with the team who made the trip.
It is a positive sign that Dane Moeller was able to make the trip. That you saw him in the picture, he's holding the bag with one arm and waving with the other. So that's a good sign.
I don't think he's going to pitch though.
Yeah, obviously this is a unique tournament where you want your whole team to experience it. So you're going to travel as many guys as you can travel
Right.
when you're playing at MLB Stadium and it's an away weekend early in the season. But still a positive sign. He wasn't wearing a sling. He wasn't not pictured. He was pictured waving, holding his bag. And yeah, that's the big question again for this Clemson team for this, what feels like the 100th year in a row.
Pitching.
What's your pitching going to look like? But also that's the nature of college baseball. It's there are only a couple teams that have a good idea of what their full rotation is going to look like going into the season. Clemson has experience in the bullpen. It seems like they might have some depth in the bullpen. The bigger question is who's going to step into those starter roles, and are you going to have to go Johnny Holstaff once a weekend? Because you really don't want to be in that situation, and especially if you get in a super regional, having a Johnny Holstaff day is that's not fun.
Now, I will say this so people understand: it's the first weekend of the season. All your starters are going to be on a pitching count. So nobody's going to get past, at the most, they'll pitch as 4 innings. At the most. I doubt you'll see that happen because I remember last year they did like 40. I want to say they were like around 40 or so pitches with their starting pitchers in the first weekend. I think you'll see that again this year because you got to take care of Canuck, first of all. You can't let anything happen to him. You need that guy. That's your Friday night guy. I think he's going to have a great season once again. And so you need to make sure he is healthy and you don't stress himself at all. And then, you want to test some other guys out because this is a good weekend to do it. Because listen, Alex, I know people want Clemson to win and I get it, but if they don't, it doesn't matter. Don't panic because this is why you play in this tournament. Coach Wilhelm played in tournaments like this all the time to start the season. He would go down to Florida and stuff and play in these kind of tournaments because he wanted to get his guys exposed to good pitching and good hitting early in the season. So when they got into conference play, they were prepared for what they were going to see. And that's what you're going to get this week. That's the kind of approach Eric Backage is doing with this team and why he's in this tournament. It's a smart move by Clemson. Don't panic. It'd be great if they win, but don't worry if they lose either. To me, I'm not even worried about it, not even stressed about it. I want them to win, obviously, because of the players and the coaches, but I'm not going to stress if they're like they come back 1-2 or 0-3. To me, I'm not going to stress about it. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's what me and you have talked about 100 times. I'm sure we've talked about it on this show at some point last spring. It's you don't really know anything about a college baseball team until they've played like 30 games. So this is a time, like you said, guys are on pitch counts. You're trying to see who you can get longevity for, who's throwing strikes, who's reliable. You're going to learn stuff about your team this weekend, so that's the fun thing. You're going to get to see what these transfers look like in the lineup. I'm excited for it, man. I'm just glad college baseball season's back. It's gonna be good to sit in a ballpark, drink an adult beverage, and eat a hot dog, and I can't wait for it. But Aiden Canuck, you know what he is. You know who Cam Canarella is. You have a good idea who some of these transfers are, and the way this Clemson coaching staff is talking, man, you think that there's a good chance that, or they seem to think there's a good chance this could be a better team they had last year. Which kind of reminds me of where the position you were in at this time last year as well. Because coming into the year, you started hearing like, oh, well, this team might be better than the team from the year prior. And a lot of people, rightly so, were like, what are you talking about? Look at all the production we lost. We lost Caden Grice. We lost, all these major pieces. This year you lose, 70 home runs off your lineup from
70.
Yeah, 70 home runs off your lineup from a year ago. But it just the way that Eric Backage builds lineups, the sum of the parts is good. It's going to be good.
Well, they bring in they got a sophomore coming in who was the Big Ten Player of the Year last year at Purdue. That's I believe Purdue, correct? Am I on that? Am I
yes.
correct?
Yeah. Luke Gaffney.
Luke Gaffney, and so like what he brings to now, granted, he's going to see better pitching than he saw when he was playing, for Purdue in the Big Ten. But I don't care. When you're a rookie of the year in any conference, you're pretty doggone good. Yep. You know what I'm saying? And so to bring him into the lineup, add him with the Cam Canarella and some of the other guys that they are bringing back, and as Bakich told us yesterday, Alex, he thinks he's got 14 guys that are legit, really good hitters, and
Well,
they
I mean,
can
you've
really
got
tattoo the ball. So
just
that's
looking at
the
the
problem.
just looking at the transfers, you got Colin Priest, who's coming down from Michigan. You got Josh Pano from California Baptist, and you got Dominic Listy from Evansville, Indiana State. Yeah,
That's
in
correct. Yep,
Evansville.
Evansville. Yep,
So
Brad
you got
Brownell's hometown.
Yep. So you got some great transfers, and you bring back experience. I mean, you've got Jacob Jarrell, who's been kind of waiting in the wings for a few years, and you've seen flashes of good things from him. Sometimes you've seen some not so good things from him. But who does that remind you of? I mean, you have a guy like Blake Wright, who early in his career had flashes of greatness, and then other times early in his career he was lacking, but ends up being a stud for you last year,
All-American.
an All-American for you. So there have been plenty of those guys that you've seen come through and really develop, and it'll be interesting to see what some of those guys that maybe you're not expecting a whole lot from, what they end up doing in this lineup. Because every year these Bakich teams, somebody's blossomed and developed after some ups and downs. So it's going to be fun to see. And there's also some freshman that always comes out of nowhere and is like the best player on your team. So it'll be interesting to see if they have that guy again.
That's going to be hard to do this year with Cam.
How are you going to do that 3 times in a row?
Gaffney on the team.
Yeah, how do you do that 3 times in a row? Because you had Cam, you had Aiden Canuck.
And that you got Gaffney on your team also now. So it's going to be hard. But like you said, how do you do that 3 years in a row? I don't know. We'll see. But he's done pretty good. Maybe there's some, bullpen guy that's a freshman that'll come in and just kill it. I don't know. We'll find out. But without a doubt, Clemson is. I think they're going to have another good year. Qualk asked me today on his radio show, how far do I think this team? Do I think it's a realistic goal to say this Omaha should be for this team, considering everything you just talked about, who they lost and all that? I said yes because we know a couple things about Eric Bakich. First of all, he took Michigan within 1 game of winning a national championship. Let me say that again, Michigan. Okay. So that's one. The second thing is, look what he's done at Clemson. First year, ACC championship, host a regional. Second year, host a regional. I think they finished second in the ACC overall in the standings, or won the ACC season. I think they may have been the top seed last year. I can't remember. But anyway, did well, right? And then host a regional, win it. All right, first time since 2010, Clemson advances to the super regional round, and then in that super regional round, in the second game, they play a marathon game with Florida where it was one miracle play after another. It was a great game that could have gone either way, and you're right there with a team who went on to go to the College World Series. You took them step for step and played with them step for step, so your program is at that level, and now it's just a matter of doing it again. And you got the coach to do it. You got the players to do it. Granted, it's still the weakness on this team is his pitching. We still just don't know enough about that yet. But if they can get that Sunday guy and get that consistency there, that's all they need. And then I think this team can make a run in the postseason and get to Omaha. Why not? They've been close. They got close last year. Why not? I think Clemson's due. I love how Eric keeps talking about in his media interviews. He's not shy. He says, he doesn't say if we win a national championship. He's saying when we win a national championship. He lets it know that team's goal is to win a national championship. He's telling this team the goal is to win a national championship. I like that. I like the way he does that because he's telling his players, I believe in you. And because of that, I do think Omaha is a legitimate goal for this team.
Yeah, I think, also it's Clemson. The standard has been set. It's on the back of the hat. You haven't been there in 15 years, and it's time to go back. So that's always going to be the standard.
Maybe Clemson goes back to Omaha. My Steelers go back to the Super Bowl.
Clemson fans should always expect, like Steelers fans should always expect to win the Super Bowl. Clemson baseball fans should always expect to be in Omaha.
I agree.
That's the expectation. Eric Bakich has made it clear that that's the expectation, and he expects even more out of his players. But that's the expectation. So we'll find out a little snippet this weekend about what this team's made of. You'll get to see their competitiveness. You'll get to see, a lot of that this weekend. You'll get to see individual pieces. But again, we won't know anything about the team really until they've played 30 games.
And I Bleav all 3 games are at noon, right? Noon on
the first 2 games are at noon on the East Coast, and the final game is at 3:30 on the East Coast.
On the East Coast. All right, there you go. So on Friday, noon first pitch. Saturday at noon first pitch. I'll be doing baseball and basketball on Saturday. So I'll be watching the baseball game, and then covering the basketball game. So it'll be fun.
And I'll just be watching baseball and having myself a darn good time.
I think you'll probably have an adult beverage in one hand.
Yeah, sure. maybe one. I don't know.
Maybe one, just one. Anyway, all right. So hey, that's Clemson baseball. Wishing the best as they open up the season this week. First game against Oklahoma State on Friday to start the regular season. By the way, their first home game will be next Wednesday against Presbyterian. Yours truly will be there as the Tigers start. Also, by the way, softball, because their first game was postponed, moved to March 4th against Furman, which is supposed to be Tuesday night. Now they'll have their first home game as they're on the road this weekend as well in another series, another tournament. So they'll have their first home game against Charlotte on Wednesday night as well. That's 6:00 game. Baseball's a 4:00 game. So you can do baseball and then go on over and cheer on the ladies over at the softball at McWhorter's.
And you get to see your former Clemson softball assistant coach in her first year as a head coach at Charlotte.
There you go. That's correct. I didn't think about that. That's it. Look at Al getting all the storylines together. That's a good reporter right there for you, right there. Just don't get yourself thrown out of the White House.
Hey, it's the Gulf of America to me. I mean, that's what Apple said on my phone. If I put it in the map, that's what's going to show up. No politics.
If you guys don't know what we're talking about, the Associated Press was thrown out of the White House because they refused to change the wording of Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America. And so President
But that's what it is on the map. So, I mean, it's what it is on the map. But Will probably still calls Russia the Soviet Union. So,
well, here's the thing I want. If Trump, stop. People don't know what you're talking about. Trump said, if Trump can get that fixed, right, then maybe he can get the AP to stop saying we have to spell out North Carolina State. We have to instead of NC State.
Can they also do the OK? Like instead of doing a capital O period, capital K period, can we just write OKAY like a normal person?
Yeah. Well, I do. There's 2 things I do that the AP doesn't like.
And the percent.
Yeah, just make it the percent sign and not have to spell out percent. Is that what you're saying? Yes. Yeah. Because I hate spelling out percent. But it sucks, But I hate the rule I hate the most, though, is the North Carolina State rule. It's NC State. It's always been NC State. On their letterheads and everything, mastheads and everything they send out, it says NC State. Nothing about North Carolina State. The Associated Press makes you say North Carolina State, spell out North Carolina State on first reference. And that's ridiculous. I never do it, never will. I refuse to do it. I'm with the president on that one. So the president needs to get that switched too.
Let's just can we defund the AP style book?
Anyway, I thought that was pretty humorous.
That was our apolitical political rant.
There you go. That's as political as we get. Anyway, so you guys, if you got questions, comments, we're going to talk Clemson football now. As you guys know, Clemson is being thought about as one of the top teams next year coming back for good reason. We're kind of can discuss that. I wrote a column today about that, Alex, very topic. So that's why it's kind of fresh on my head and we could kind of talk about it. But if you got questions and comments, please leave some comments in there. We'd be happy to talk about them. Right now, we got Mel Grace, his thoughts on all the new hires Dabo has done in the offseason. Mel's coming to YouTube from us with that. Mel, thanks for the question. So first of all, Tom Allen, let's just start there. I think what an upgrade that is because of his experience factor, former head coach. The guy's been in the business a long time. He's a defensive-minded guy, obviously. What he did at Indiana, when you go and look when he came to Indiana and was first year's defensive coordinator, look how big of a difference that 1 year Indiana was as opposed to the year before that. They were like horrible. I'm talking nightmarish. And then he made them a pretty doggone good Big Ten defense after that. And then he ended up getting the head coaching job that same year and took over as the head coach, and then continued to work with the defense as well. And throughout his tenure, they always had a really good defense at Indiana. Look at what he did at Penn State. This 1 year, he made them a top 10 defense, a defense that was super dominant, helped the team get to the college football playoff. I mean, look what he did against SMU. SMU went up and down the field on Clemson in the second half. They couldn't do anything against Penn State. Yep. I think that's a great move and really excited about what Coach Allen's going to do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And he's a culture fit. He's you heard his press conference, and if you close your eyes and forsook the accent, you might have thought it was Dabo Swinney talking. He's a Clemson culture fit. He mentioned how he's, kind of admired what the Clemson program has done from afar, and he's bought in. And the success speaks for itself. But there are a lot of successful coaches that go places and they're not a fit and it doesn't work. And I don't think that's going to be the case at Clemson. If it doesn't work, it's going to be a different reason. It's not going to be because he's not a culture fit. I think it's a home run. I think his son coaching linebackers with Ben Boulware is going to be a great move for the Clemson defensive staff too. So going to be a lot of fun to look at. I mean, and heck, the other news that just came out on that as well, is Mike Houston.
I'm sorry, not Sam Houston.
Joining the defensive coaching staff as well.
Former East Carolina head coach, another head coach in the coaches room and coaches meetings. When you look how many head coaches now you got Tom Allen, you got Matt Luke, now you got Houston. I mean, you got 3 head coaches, not including your head ball coach as well. In that room. That says a lot. And you got 2 on the defensive side, and you got 1 on the offensive side that you can lean on with their experiences. And that's what, when these guys come on, and this is what I like about Mike Houston, all the experience he brings.
I mean, he's won a national championship as a head coach.
As a head coach, exactly.
At James Madison.
And he's seen different things. He's seen everything. Tom Allen has seen everything, right? These guys have seen everything thrown at them. And so when they get into the coaches' meeting rooms, and they say, okay, what can we do? They can all lean on their experiences. Okay, well, when we were at this school, we did this. Or when I was at this school, we did this. That is a huge thing in coaching. I've said this before, and I'll keep saying it. Experience is everything, and especially in coaching, because they see so many different things when they've been in it a long time. And so this is a major upgrade in your defensive room. Immediately, you bring in Tom Allen with all his experience, and now you bring in Mike Houston and everything he's done. Both defensive guys, both defensive coordinators, both have been head coaches. You can't ask for better than those 2 guys kind of leading your defensive charge, if you will.
No, absolutely. And, when you're coaching at different levels and different conferences and different areas, you experience different problems. And you might find a different solution that Clemson hasn't had to use, in years past, that can help you fix things. And then the other hire that we didn't mention, I don't think we got to it last week, was Kevin Kelly coming in as the director of player evaluation and acquisition.
Yeah, well, that's because everything happened later.
Everything happened so fast. I mean, you've got a guy that was a senior director of college scouting for the LA Chargers, that has 2 decades of NFL experience in a front office.
And that's the key, front office NFL experience. And I wrote a column about this, that Dabo Swinney isn't playing anymore. Let's look what Dabo Swinney has done since the South Carolina game. All right. He's gone to the transfer portal, and he's pulled out 3 players that will help the team this year, and they're going to make the team better. Okay. Then he went and got one of the top defensive minds in the country to come be his defensive coordinator. All right. Then he's gone in and brought in a couple of analysts that are going to help at wide receiver, where we talked about that last week. And then you're going to have one that's going to help on the defense side. That's not by accident. He knows what he's doing there. Then he goes and he hires basically a general manager to run his team. Now they're not calling him as general manager because they already have a general manager in George Soros. But what this is Kelly is going to take some of that responsibilities from George Soros, where George Soros can focus on some other things, and Kelly's gonna worry about player acquisition. Basically, what a general manager does in NFL.
Right.
He's going to scout guys, and he's going to bring them on. And how do you bring them on? What money do we have? How much money do we have? What can we do to get them on? He's going to be in charge of all that. He's a guy that's been in the front office for, as you said, over 2 decades, in the NFL, brings that ton of experience. A great hire by Dabo. Again, showing Dabo Swinney is not playing anymore. He's like, Dabo Swinney, this is what I tell people. Dabo Swinney wants to win a national championship. He sees that on-3 list that ranks him 6th amongst head coaches. Do you think, yes, Dabo Swinney sees that, and Dabo Swinney's got an ego enough to say, I'm better than 6. What are y'all doing? You know what I'm saying? Like, Dabo Swinney should be no worse than 3. No worse. And he's seeing people ranking him 6 and stuff. All that does is make Dabo madder, makes him hungrier. And I'm telling you, Dabo Swinney wants to win another national championship. He's not satisfied. And the moves he's made since that South Carolina game is proof of that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, this Rob kind of coming in on this topic as well. Do you think there'll be any portal signings in April? I mean, I think obviously it depends on, what talent you have that leaves. Because, there's probably going to be somebody you'd think that leaves when that depth chart comes out.
We'll see.
I mean, maybe there won't be. Maybe there won't be.
If there's safety, defensive back, those are the areas that you could see that potential.
Running back.
Running back, maybe. Yep. Those are areas that I see. Do I see any potential starters leaving? No. I don't see any of the starters leaving. Wide receiver could be a potential again. You could lose another one. Depends on how the spring goes. I don't think anybody at wide receiver, because I think everybody seems pretty content over there. I think, Antonio Williams is set. I think Tyler Brown's set. Because Tyler Brown knows he's going to be the guy next year. Also he's going to be used this year a lot. He just wasn't healthy last year. That's why he wasn't used. I think
maybe from a depth standpoint, you could see, just depending on what your roster numbers look like, you could see, maybe you could see somebody signed in that spring window to help fill a hole.
Injuries too. Yeah. Injuries happen. If you hate to say it, or but if an injury happens and they lose a guy they were counting on in the season, coming up season, that could cause them to go into the portal and go get a guy as well. If I had to say a position still of need where they could probably use a little more depth, is still linebacker. They got Alexander. I think it's a great move. I think he's going to play linebacker. But I don't think it would hurt them to get another guy, even though they do get Kobe McLeod back this year. That's going to be a big get back for, because Kobe McLeod last year was ready to play.
Yeah,
and everybody kept talking about how good
he was in the conversation. To play a whole lot,
right,
going into the year.
And so people forgot. I mean, that was a big loss for Clemson defensively early in the season last year when they lost him. So I think the App State game is when they lost him. So then he was done for the year after that. So that's a guy that I think they're really excited about what he can do coming back off that injury. Obviously, his brother Ray played here at Clemson, so he's a Clemson guy, loves Clemson. By the way, loves the Steelers too. So, but anyway, we won't get down that road. Let me see. Mel Graves, what date is the spring game? We don't know yet. Has not officially been announced. So I can't say what that date is just yet. They're going to have designations here probably shortly. So just stay tuned to ClemsonTigers.com, our website, the Clemson Insider as well, for that information. I could tell you spring practice starts February 28th. So that starts in a couple weeks. Dabo will likely announce it that day. He generally tells us we get the whole practice schedule. So I imagine before we start practice, that week of December 28th, you're going to know when the spring game will be. The designations days will come out for Clemson's football schedule. And that's always one that's always asked as well. So
right around the corner. You'll know soon, Mel. You'll know soon.
Exactly. Right around the corner. Let's see. We got some other questions here. We got Justin from Facebook. I don't see us getting by the first round if Clemson gets into the CFP. Justin, I'm glad you asked about the CFP.
And then he follows up with this right here. Going to be a long time until we beat up on big teams again.
See, I don't know if I agree with that.
Yeah, because I mean, I do think that September is a long way away from right now.
Right. You
Personally.
personally, and you got LSU right off the bat, who's a
Well,
big
that's what
team.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
September's, I guess in some line of reasoning, it is a long time until September
Right.
when
I
LSU comes
guess
to that
I
power.
see what you're saying now. Yeah. Yeah. I get what you're saying. That went over my head. Yeah. So, like, and then also, I know people are down on that, but guys, let's be honest. Clemson wasn't ready to play Georgia last year. They weren't at that level yet. But I'm telling you, if Clemson had any semblance of a defense, they would have beat Texas. There's no doubt in my mind they would have won that game if they had any kind of defense, because their offense, they moved the ball against Texas as good as anybody, including Ohio State. So like Clemson's offense is legit. It's going to be electric this year. I think the defense is going to be top 20 again. And if you got a top 20, top 30 defense, and you got an offense that's top 10, which Clemson's offense was last year, by the way. Clemson had a top 10, top 15 offense when it comes to total yards and scoring offense.
Yep.
And passing offense. They were really good too. Clemson, if you had that kind of offense and you get a top 30 defense, you're going to be in the college football playoff mix and you're going to win a college football playoff game. I'm telling you that right now. Okay? That's how close this team is to being really doggone good. And Dabo knows that too.
Yeah, and I think you can clearly see. I still think even with the loss to South Carolina, you can still see clearly the growth arc of this team from 2023 to 2024 to where you'd expect it to be at the end of spring practice going into the fall. I mean, yeah, you had some dips in there, but if you look at the curve, it's going up. Dabo wasn't wrong when he said buy stock in Clemson. It just maybe you had to wait another year to see your full returns. But going into this fall, man, I think that we were going to talk about ceiling and floor. I think they got a pretty doggone high ceiling. I mean, look at other teams around the country and what they're bringing back and what they expect to be. And there's no reason that Clemson shouldn't be in that same conversation as the people you think would be the big dogs.
And look, I know we're believing Clemson football, so obviously you guys are going to think, Clemson propaganda stuff, and I get that. But it's not just us that's saying this. If you look around the country, Clemson's top 10 in everything. You know what I'm saying? Like they're top. Everybody has them in the top 10. Everybody has them as the favorite to win the ACC. Everybody has them as the favorite to do a lot of things, right? And I think that needs to be noticed that Clemson – people are recognizing the kind of team Dabo's bringing back. Like they retained pretty much every star player on the roster. They didn't go anywhere. They didn't get to the transfer portal. They all came back, on offense and defense. You bring 8 starters back on offense. You bring 7 starters back on defense. And I know, then you bring in a guy like Will Helt from Purdue. You added him into the mix. You added Jermaine Alexander to the mix as well on defense. You are loaded in a lot of good positions. Now, depth is still a concern with me when it comes to linebacker. As I said earlier, I know Corey Bryant just talked about up here, hey, the running back is a concern for him. Absolutely, because we don't know who's going to be the running back. I love the freshman, though. Hear a lot of good things about this guy. I haven't heard this much about a true freshman running back before they even got into practice since, I don't know, a guy named Travis Etienne.
Start with a T.
Yeah. So I'm not saying he's going to be Travis Etienne, but if he can be half as good as Travis Etienne, then that's all Clemson needs at running back, and they'll be fine. And then I think you still got good pieces behind him, right? I still think, Adams is a guy. Guyton wins the job. Yeah, exactly. So, I think there's talent there, I think, at running back, right? It's just a matter of we got to see it. We haven't seen it. We don't know what to count on anybody. Got one guy that's going to come off injury after just tearing it in the ACC, tearing his ACL in the ACC championship game. How fast does he come back, right? I mean, that's another thing. He won't be available for the spring. And then, a safety, I don't understand why I know you lose Mickens. and that's understandable. But I like Griffin at safety.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah, I
I
do
like.
too.
I think you got you're gonna put help me out. My brain's not working, Alex.
It'll come to you. Just keep
Number
rolling with your
number
thought.
7.
Barnes.
Barnes. You bring
Yeah.
Khalil Barnes back, and I think, Khalil got better as the season went along last year. He started off rough. I think part of the problems, though, for Khalil was the fact that the defensive front wasn't very good.
Well, and
I think that was the problems.
part of it too could be, kind of sophomore slump. You had a
Yeah.
great freshman season. You finished on that huge high note, and it's hard to for some guys to kind of live up to some of those expectations. But
Mhm.
again, like you say, the front seven created a lot of problems for Clemson, particularly linebackers last year, and really kind of exposed some things on the back end. JP gets in, Ricardo Jones.
Ricardo
Another name
Jones.
to keep in. I'm not as concerned about the secondary as a lot of people seem to be. I'm like you. I think linebacker concerns me. I mean, you get Will Helt on the front, so I feel a lot better about the defensive front than I did before you went out and made that signee out of the transfer portal. But I feel good about the secondary.
Yeah, and then let's see. There was one more safety that we're missing here, besides Ricardo Jones. Man, hold on a second. My brain just doesn't work as well as it used to, guys. I apologize. So I'm looking up the roster here. That's always the way to go if you can't find it. Shelton Lewis. Gosh, I can't believe that. Shelton Lewis is a guy who can play the nickel position and corner. And that allows them to do a little bit more with what they want to do with Khalil Barnes, right, Alex? So,
Yeah.
if you remember, he got hurt for a little bit last year, so they missed him. So Khalil had to play more of the nickel, probably more than they wanted him to. I think Khalil Barnes, he just had a bad sophomore year at the start of the year. I think he'll be back and be fine. Ricardo Jones is going to be a beast. I really believe that. I'm with JP on that. They need easy to take the next step, as JP says as well. So I think this team, running back, of course, I think this team has got the pieces in those positions that running back, I want to see it. I think there's talent there, as JP mentions with EZ. And then at safety, I don't understand the concern because they seem pretty good to me.
Yeah.
And when I've watched them play, they seem pretty good. I know some guys were out of position, but a lot of that was because of what was going on up front. Yeah. They just weren't getting it done up front. And so it made the safeties in the secondary look bad. I think the talent's there in the secondary.
Yeah, I think you've seen it from those guys in the secondary. You've seen it from those guys at safety. Running back, it's I want you to prove it. I can hear talk about you, and I can hear about how great you're going to be as a young guy. We heard that about some young guys coming into this past season, that they were going to be really good second options, guys that were going to split carries, and we just didn't see that all season. We didn't last year. So I think I'm more at a prove it on the running back position. But in terms of safety, I'm really not that concerned about that position.
Yeah. All right. So just wanted Clemson is a top 10 team. Let me ask you this. Do you agree with the talking heads out there that Clemson is a top 10 preseason team, that they deserve to be in the top 10 to start the season?
Yeah. I mean, I don't see why not. I mean, you won the ACC last year. You were very competitive against Texas in that game in the college football playoff. You made winning moves in the offseason. And I think all of those things, you brought back all of your star talent, well, almost all of your star talent. So I think that alone puts you in top 10 conversation. I think Clemson's probably like the 7th best team in the country going into the season. I know some people on a few lists I've seen have had them higher than that, maybe in the top 5, maybe like at number 5. I think I would probably put them at like number 7 because I want you to prove it. Also, preseason rankings being beans. But yeah, I think they're definitely deserving of a top 10 ranking going into the year.
I disagree with preseason rankings means beans because unfortunately they do mean something, because I think they set the what's the word? Of what everybody's going to think for the rest
they
of the
set
year.
the narrative.
They set the narrative. There it is. They set the narrative.
But also, you have a chance with Clemson's schedule this year. You're gonna have to prove it.
But if you're top 10 to start the year and say you beat LSU, well, now you all of a sudden you move into probably the top 5.
Right.
And then if you win those games, Alex, you're sitting top 5, top 3, late in the year. And so the perception is totally different about Clemson. Whereas if, let's say, Clemson starts at number 25, then the Clemson may get up to top 10 and people are still saying, well, we don't know. So to me, that's, everybody wants to know why the SEC is always talked about. Well, because you have 8 games ranked in the top 15 to start the season.
Yeah.
And so all year long, that's all everybody talks about. And so they get the perceptions out there that the SEC is so good. And that's why they keep being brought up and they're ranked so high. And that's why they can have 3 teams ranked in the top 15 with 3 losses. That's why that happens. And so for Clemson, if you're ranked in the top 10 and you go beat LSU, it's not going to hurt LSU to lose to Clemson.
Right.
It'll hurt Clemson to lose to LSU.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. But in this 12-team era, it doesn't matter as much. It's just what you saw last year. What you saw last year doesn't matter that much.
But it shows
your national champion got punked by their rival who sucked at the end of the season, and it didn't mean anything.
Well, it's about how you're playing at the end of the year, just like the NFL is. But you got to get in there first. And so for Clemson to get in position to where they don't want to have to put it all on oh my gosh, we got to go win the ACC to get in.
Right.
So for Clemson, they need to beat LSU. They need to beat North Carolina on the road. They need to go beat Louisville on the road. They need to beat South Carolina. That they need to win those games. That way they're in position just in case something crazy happens in the ACC championship. They're not putting all their marbles into having to get into the playoff by winning the ACC championship. They can say, you know what? We're in the college football playoff. We're one of the top 5 teams. We got a schedule that backs it up. We beat LSU. We beat South Carolina. There's no way in the world they're going to take us out when we've knocked off 2 SEC teams, right? There's no way. So that's kind of what that's why I think more than ever the regular season is important. It really is. It's like
it is. I don't think the regular season is not important, but you have margin for error, and also. Like my point to where the preseason rankings don't mean beans for Clemson this year is you're going to be playing ranked football teams throughout the year. I mean, look at the schedules that scrolls on the bottom. There's no doubt in my mind that Clemson will play like 4 ranked teams at least during the regular season. So that's why I'm not too overly concerned about that.
Ryan, I'm glad you brought this up, but you said 30th in recruiting standings has got us in a bad spot. We need a national championship. We won a national championship with top 5 recruiting classes, not top 30. That's not accurate. Clemson won the 2016 national championship with the top 15 class. They weren't a top 5 class. They were top 5 with Trevor Lawrence in that team. I think definitely top 10. I don't think they were top 5. But the 2016 team, if you remember, guys, 2015 and 16, they didn't have very much depth at all.
Right.
And they remember how tired Polware those guys were at the end of games because they had nobody behind them. And that was for 15 and 16. They went that way. And so they won the national championship that first year because of Deshaun Watson. I'm just going to call it like it is. They had Deshaun Watson, who was just unbelievable. And then you had guys like Mike Williams and those guys. But they weren't top 5 classes. Now, they weren't top 30. They were better than top 30. You're correct. But still, it wasn't like they were, oh, my gosh. Clemson, I think that 2016 national championship team, I think them and Auburn in 2010 are the 2 lowest star rating teams to win a national championship since 2000. So you don't got to have top 5 guys to win national championships all the time. It helps, but you don't have to. That's where Clemson's always done good. They've always done a good job of, getting their players and making them better through the course of their careers. Player progression has always been good at Clemson. And so I think that'll still continue to be the same. But this year's class doesn't hurt Clemson for this season.
Right.
That hurts Clemson next year and 2 years from now. So my concern isn't Clemson with the top 30 recruiting class. I'm not concerned with it for this year at all, except for the running back position. That's the only thing that's going to come in, and he's supposed to be one of the best running backs in the country. So I'm not worried about it at all from that standpoint. I'm only worried about it in 2026 and going forward. That's where my concern lies in recruiting.
Right. And then, the Clemson
JP.
Insiders recruiting guru, Jason Priester, JP, chiming in. Clemson's 2025 recruiting class is ranked so low because it's based on numbers. They don't have as many bodies. It's still top 15 in average per recruit, meaning there's plenty of quality. And that's always what Dabo's done.
Thanks, JP.
He's not going out and signing 33 stars or whatever to boost his recruiting ranking like you would in college football 25 on your PlayStation. Dabo's about quality, and he retains his players, so he doesn't need to sign these huge classes that other places that have a mass exodus every year do, like
exactly.
Florida State.
Exactly. JP comes back. Still need to load up on that 2026 though. So go ahead there.
Yeah. And Mel Graves chimes in, until Dabo starts recruiting and signing generational quarterbacks again, Clemson will not win another national championship.
Well, Mel, I'm glad you said that, because there's this thing called rev sharing that's going to come into play. And the reason Clemson has not been able to get those top quarterbacks lately that you're talking about, other than Cade Klubnik, who came in before NIL, is because of NIL. Because Clemson couldn't win the bidding wars with them. I mean, it's just that's the way it is. But now Clemson's going to be able to be competitive. That's what the rev sharing was so big. That's why that's such big news for Clemson, because Clemson guys, especially some of you guys I know Clemson grads, so you understand what I'm saying here. There's no doctors, there's no lawyers that are Clemson grads for the most part, okay? It's just not. So that big-time billionaire just isn't out there for Clemson, or multiple billionaires as some schools have. It's just not there. And then they don't have those rich doctors and lawyers to pull off of like other schools have.
Clemson does have the CEO of Whataburger.
They do. They do have the CEO of Whataburger.
That's my fun fact to all the
But they don't have many CEOs of Whataburger is my other fact.
Right.
They got engineers. And an engineer's a fine profession. It makes good money, but they don't make the kind of money that helps you that Ohio State and North Carolina and those schools put up. Those kind of millions, and Georgia, right? So that's the difference.
And here's the other thing, guys. I see some people saying, rev share is not connected to NIL. They're two separate parts of money. We know this.
Yes,
what we're saying is, with rev share, Clemson's going to be giving, in the words of Dabo Swinney, as much as everybody else is in football to their program. So they're going to be able to compete. So you're not going to be saying, hey, man, we'd love for you to come here. I know this school offered you $4 million. We're going to offer you a much lower amount to come play for us. You're going to be able to give a competitive offer.
Correct.
On top of that.
Because understand, some of these kids it's not all about money, but they want you to be in the ballpark. Clemson hasn't been able to be in the ballpark. Right. So these kids are like, okay, I like Clemson from an academic standpoint. I like Clemson with this culture in the football program. I like this. But Clemson's only offering me $500,000. And this other school, which is offering me really good academics, they got a pretty good culture for their environment, and they got this, and they have a lot of success as well. They're offering me $2.5 million. So What are you going to do? You're going to take the other school that pretty much gives you all the same stuff Clemson gives you, and they're going to give you $2 million more. I think everybody's going to take the $2 million more. So Clemson's got to be more competitive, where they can say, okay, we can offer $2.5 million, and you're getting offered $3 million over here, but you like us for all these other reasons. That may be the difference that allows Clemson to pull the kid in. So and the NIL's out there, we understand it, but trust me, nobody understands the NIL part and this and everything more than me. I've written millions of stories on everything. So, but understand that the NIL, there's still question marks about it. The coaches are trying to get it to where they can control a little bit more. I don't know if that's going to happen. They want to get it to where the third parties aren't as dominant as they can be. And right now that's the concern, is the third party NIL people that Ohio State and those people can have.
I agree with this, Rob. Dolph Lundgren being the spokesperson for 110 Society, that'd be pretty cool. That'd be cool. That would be cool.
But
yeah, I've also heard a lot of people. I don't know. I've just heard a lot of misconceptions about Clemson's optimism in terms of using rev share, and people saying that it doesn't matter, whatever. They're still not going to be able to compete. Clemson still might not be able to, and probably won't be able to match some of these, like crazy Ole Miss offers, and Michigan offers and things like that.
They don't need to.
But they don't need to. Also, you see this happen in professional sports all the time, which, like it or not, college sports is professionalized now. You see guys take pay cuts to go to winners and to go to better cultures and to go to a place they want to go to all the time. You see it in the NBA, you see it in the NFL, you see it in the MLB. Look at what the Dodgers have done. I know they give out a lot of money, but there are a lot of guys on their roster too that take pay cuts to be there. Right. And it's the same thing in college sports. There are going to be guys who take a little bit less to go to Clemson. There are guys on Clemson's roster now that are doing it. Right. A lot of guys on Clemson's roster that are doing it.
And understand
that would make a lot more money other places.
And understand this, Clemson is going to designate a lot of its rev share to football. If you've seen our reports on the Clemson Insider, you know this already. So of the $20.5 million, a lot of that percentage is going to go to football. It's already pretty much designated. Like I said, you can go read our story at Clemson Insider. It tells you that. We've been reporting that for several months now. So it's not going to be like some schools, a la South Carolina. That's going to have to they're going to have to put their money in some other sports that Clemson's not going to have to, because their school's going to want them to put that money there. Clemson's not going to have to do that. Clemson's going to give it to football. Most of it's going to be football. And then most of it's going to be most of the rest is going to go to men's basketball.
Yep.
And there's reasons for that, guys, because you know why? Those two sports bring in the most money.
Yep.
And that's the whole point behind this, is to give money to the schools or to the sports that bring in the money. You're giving money to the athletes that help bring in the money. Well, at Clemson, it's football and men's basketball. Yep. And that's what they're going to do. And so now I'm not saying that it's all going to be football and men's basketball. There may be a little bit of money go to baseball, some here and there. I don't know definitely all that, but I can tell you this. Clemson football is going to get a big majority of the money, and then basketball is going to get most of the rest. All right, so that's what's happening at Clemson. That's why Clemson's going to be competitive. That's why Dabo Swinney says we got the money. we just got to be able to, once it becomes legal and they can use the money, at that point. And then they're hopeful that with the House settlement, that some of this NIL stuff will get controlled to where they can try to control it a little bit more and have a situation where some teams like Ole Miss aren't abusing it, right, which is what's happening.
And there was some positive news in terms of schools like Clemson on rev share and NIL today in the court system.
Right, with the Title IX stuff.
Yeah, with the Title IX ruling. That's positive news for Clemson football.
Oh, absolutely. Because if Clemson if that stood, if the Trump administration came in and kept it, and so people know what we're talking about, basically the Department of Education came out before Biden left. One of the things they did is they said that NIL money should be treated like a
the same way that everything else is with Title IX.
With scholarships. In other words, if a football player gets this much money for NIL, then a women's basketball player should be given the same. That's what this ruling is saying. And because it could be considered because of their scholarship. That's how they're using it. If a scholarship athlete's getting this other one should get it. Well, the argument with that is like, that's not fair, because football is the reason why these other sports exist, and football is what brought in the money, and men's basketball is what brought in the money. Even women's basketball now is bringing in a little bit of money. Those are the sports that should be getting the money, not sports that don't, non-revenue sports that don't bring in any money. And I think that was part of the argument. But the Trump administration came in today and they nixed that memo and said, nope, that Title IX has nothing to do with this. This is not part of the Title IX. This is what not Title IX means. And that was
it's
huge
not
for
within
Clemson.
the scope of
Because
the.
can you
the Title
imagine
IX
Clemson
ruling.
having to share the $20.5 million and saying, okay, football's going to get, it would knock football down from potentially going, Alex, $17 to $18 million for the football program to about $8 million.
Yeah.
That's what it would knock it down. And that $10 million is a lot of money when it comes to trying to get player retention, bringing in players for the transfer portal. That $10 million is a big hit. So, yeah, the Trump administration just saved Clemson football for at least the next 4 years.
We'll see what happens in another 4. And hopefully we'll still be doing the show in 4 years to break it down for you.
We hope so. Man, fun show. Guys, we appreciate all the comments and stuff. It's getting kind of late. We kind of run over just a little bit here. But we wanted to give you guys a lot of time to ask some questions and stuff. We appreciate you joining us this week. Like I said, spring practice starts February 28th next week. Let's kind of break down the depth chart a little bit, kind of get you to see what matchups you need to watch in the spring, what freshmen need to pay attention to in the spring. As you know, you got several guys that are already on campus. So with that said, that's Alex Dodd. I'm Will Vandervort. We'll talk to you next time on Bleav in Clemson Football.